This is called the simplicity of death. Take a dictionary and look up the definition of death. For a human being, which is the area of interest here, it is the total and permanent cessation of all the vital functions, loss or absence of spiritual life. Now, right away, you should notice that there are two definitions here. One deals with the physical aspects of death. The other assumes a spiritual side of life, which may also die. Again, these are only two definitions. Many more are listed, and the synonyms are numerous. A conclusion one could draw from this is that there is at least some ambiguity associated with the phenomenon of death. Death is an abstract, and our knowledge of it is at best theoretical. As such, the issue of the simplicity of death can be approached from a set of assumptions. If one could guess that there are only a limited number of possibilities associated with the concept of death, then the aversion to and the fear of death may be alleviated somewhat. What assumptions, then, could we make regarding the possibilities of death? To the intellectual, there appears to be only four scenarios. The first may be the closest in meeting the definition of physical death, that is, the total and permanent cessation of all vital functions. If you amend this to say that the death of an entity would result in the end of existence for that being, then you have a death that would not be necessarily frightful nor unattractive, and I'll explain. On a couple of occasions in my life, I've had a medical procedure performed on me. The procedure required that I be put to sleep. During one such event, which was a repair of a deviated septum, I was put to sleep prior to the procedure. The anesthesia was applied intravenously. I had noticed the clock on the wall indicating 12 noon. After a few drops of the solution, I had counted backwards from 100, had reached the number 96 when I lost consciousness. I was awakened and I soon noticed the clock on the wall. The time then read 2 p.m. 2 hours of lost time had occurred. The only way I was aware of knowing of this passage of time was the clock on the wall and the difference in my senses because they had been packed. I had a revelation. I thought, what if this is what death is like? If death is like that experience, then there is no fear, there's no aversion. This is not to say that death is attractive, but should one be given the opportunity to choose a death experience, this would rank among the top choices. This is what I recall from the 2 hours of unconsciousness. Nothing. I did not feel good. I did not feel bad. I did not see good. I did not see bad. I did not smell good. I did not smell bad. I did not touch good. I did not touch bad. I did not taste good. I did not taste bad. I did not hear good. I did not hear bad. I also did not do any of these things well nor badly. My memory of the experience was that there was no memory. Now let me proceed further. Should I not have awoken from that sleep, and should my condition continue infinitely as it had for those past 2 hours, existence for me had stopped. I was no longer perceptive, aware. Since I was no longer aware, I was no longer aware of goodness, nor badness, of good things, nor bad things, good feelings, nor bad feelings. Being unaware precludes having opinions of this state of being or unbeing, as the case may be. Concluding, if one ceases to exist and this cessation is defined by loss of awareness, then why should we be frightful? What would be so difficult to accept about such a finish? So now you have one possibility of the scenario of death. Let us move on. If this first scenario is wrong, then we may assume that death does not mean loss of awareness. That being the case, we may conclude that death has an aspect of awareness. If we proceed along this logical path, there are three possible scenarios that may occur. Let's look at the second possibility. You go to hell. Notice I did not capitalize the word hell for good reason. Here we will explore the transition to a continued existence but one of continued unpleasantness. This existence may in fact be the literal biblical hell or a lesser horrific environment. Many people will tell you to go to hell, and oftentimes you may feel as if you have gone to hell and or that you are in hell as of the moment. Again, if you consult most dictionaries, hell is a place most of us do not want to be. So assuming there is a hell, most of us don't want to go there, even for a moment, much less eternity. Therefore, you may form your own personalized interpretations as to what hell is. If it is the unpleasant experience, then you'd probably be afraid and have a strong aversion to this option. So here is fear, and fear of death in particular. So death is not without some concern. Enough of hell. Now for the third possibility. We have seen how we have seen how you may become unaware or suffer the environment of hell upon your death. But what if death is neither of these? What is left is to consider. Being human and certainly not all-knowing, there are still some options that come to mind, even to us simpletons. Scenario number 3. We continue to exist in a manner to which we are accustomed. That is, we have bodies, minds, spirits, brains, arms, and legs, and a place of residence exactly like or somewhat like Earth. This is rather middle ground. That is to say, it is an existence of good and bad, pain and pleasure, peace and violence, etc., etc. I think you get the point. Now, this is attractive to me. I'm so fond of my current life, despite any difficulties, that I could live a million more in different vocations, and I do not believe the boredom would find me out. In reflection, number 3 is more than acceptable. So there is no aversion here. The fourth scenario is heaven. What's not to like? Whether it be the biblical account or personalized nirvana, utopia, paradise, or other arena of wonder, heaven is the place people want to go and the place to be. There are always exceptions, but even if there are people who thrive on pain and suffering, perhaps that is their heaven that they would like to be. Some of you may say there are less possibilities than the 4 I have mentioned. Some of you may say that there are many, many more than I have mentioned. Either of these two positions may be the more accurate. True, there may be gradations or variations from the norm in any of the 4 scenarios I mentioned. That being the case, one could argue for an infinite number of possibilities. But even given variations, these 4 scenarios hold the key to one's perception of comfort, acceptability, fear, or distress over the issue of the true meaning and import of death. Now we can return to the 4 options. Which would you choose? What's the acceptable one to you? I consider myself to be a typical individual with average knowledge and understanding of life and its offerings. I thoroughly enjoy life, even during the bad times. I've got nothing better going for me. Therefore, I'm not attracted to death, but my assessment of these 4 options have certainly provided me with a calm, peaceful acceptance of the inevitability of the death event and what that may foreshadow. It would seem logical that only one of the transitions is unacceptable, that one of hell. The other 3 are certainly either tolerable or downright attractive, as individual observations may be. If you eliminate the option of unawareness, then the remaining 2 attractive options are earth-like or heaven-type results. The best of these 4 is obviously heaven-like. The worst of the 4, hell-like. Although betting is a sin, were you to be prudent and hedge your bet, you would want to place your wager on going to heaven and avoiding hell. Now we come to the essence of dealing with the simplicity of death. The effort we put forth to attain the option of heaven is our own. The lack of effort could provide us with a free ticket to hell. Most religions have either literal hells and heavens or symbolic representations of them as a description of the aftermath or after-death experience. They also offer a path or methodology for gaining access to heaven or messing up and ending up in hell. The Christian concept of heaven and hell are quite clear compared to other descriptions given. It is this concept upon which I encourage you to base your choice of an afterlife. The Ten Commandments are a good starting point for someone to determine the path and methodology for attaining heaven. The constant failure to comply with these commandments and the desire to stray intentionally will have you headed in the wrong direction. If you continue in the wrong direction and fail to acknowledge your mistakes and do not ask forgiveness and guidance to overcome the errors of your way, then you may never attain the goal of heaven. Continuing along this line of reasoning, if you accept this aspect of Christianity, you probably do accept the rest of the biblical teachings. If you don't, perhaps you should reconsider. Even if you're wrong and there was no Christ, no Jesus to come and save us from and die for our sins, that we may attain heaven and life ever after, what would be the harm in trying to follow a life path that otherwise would reflect an effort of good deeds done, courtesy to and respect of others, love for your fellow humans, family, friends, and enemies alike, eh? What would be the harm? On the other hand, what would be the benefit? Perhaps an earth life more fulfilling and rewarding, more positive and loving, with more peace and calm and less violence, and who knows, perhaps a chance of going to heaven. So the answer of death is simple. The choice of death is simple. The pathway is well marked and delineated. What more do we need? What more do we want? Eternity. We want eternity. Eternity with conditions set. Unfortunately, we're the ones who want to set those conditions. Fortunately, they have already been set for us. Returning briefly to the simplicity of death construct, only one of those options depicted does not offer eternity, at least not an eternity of awareness. That was the first option. All the rest indicate continued awareness, thus existence, and thus, perhaps, immortality. If you accept the aforementioned concept of Christianity and the teachings of the Bible, the continued existence in an environment of heaven or hell is all that remains after this life. Nonetheless, based on these same Bible teachings, either of those options are for eternity, even more the reason to bet on heaven. But what do we earthlings do? We wander around, fearing our last gasp and pursuing the elixir of immortality here on earth. Reincarnation is not specifically addressed as an afterlife in Christian teachings. Other religions do imply or firmly state it as a reality. The earth-like option would, in many respects, be in line with reincarnation, although this option was discussed for remaining in human or human-like form. Some beliefs in reincarnation allows for the return to a plane of existence in the form of other animals or plants. This excursion is outside the realm of our discussion, and no more relevance will be given to it. But we humans search for the elixir of foreverness in our current state, which we perceive to be terminal. This is an error-prone, futile effort to achieve what is already offered and available to you as a Christian. If you accept the truth of Christianity, then you accept the access to heaven and all the eternity it implies. Having looked at the four options of death offered, as a Christian, only one is truly acceptable: heaven. Now, if we live to achieve the goal of heaven, we will achieve immortality simultaneously, and eternity will be ours. Therefore, accepting this submission, we are already immortal and eternal. So why should we concern ourselves with the sciences and biologies of the day to be considered for that magic potion when we are already immortal? Waste of time, don't you think? If that pursuit is a waste and we are already immortal, shouldn't we spend our immortal lives chasing for constructive, loving, caring agendas? Shouldn't we concern ourselves more about the condition of our fellow humans, the earth and its wonders, than that of some selfish, egotistical dream? And if we concern ourselves with others, then we will be more apt to do the will of God, that Christian thing, and by so doing provide ourselves with a more certain immortal future. I believe this is my first use of the word God in this essay. This being the case, giving consideration to what God is in the light of Christian understanding. The God of Christianity created the heavens and the earth and all else. God is outside, beyond the confines of space and times. God is also inside, beyond the confines of space and times. God is eternal, having no beginning nor ending, but being both and all in between. Humans did not always exist, and in that sense can never be eternal. But from the moment each individual breathes the breath of life, the path that individual chooses can offer life eternal thereafter. Life in heaven or life in hell awaits each one of us after we have taken the breath into our lungs. So the options for the Christian are more narrow: heaven or hell. Which will it be? Choose the path of heaven. Even as scientists would deduce the same.